Hello chat, hi guys. How are y'all doing? Boop, boop. How are we doing today? This lovely night. We are continuing our read. I have to send... Oops. Ah! Leaked! Oh god. Oh, I forgot to... It's fine. I have to send this link. Okay, we're gonna wait a few more minutes, and then we'll get started. I was looking back at the VOD last night, and, my music, I think, was, like, way too loud, so I'm gonna try to keep the volume a bit... I'm gonna try to keep the levels a bit better now. Or at least I thought it was too loud. So, yeah. But we are hanging out, we're vibing, and we're doing Chapter 2 of Alternate Universe by Unda. So I'll wait till like 9:05 and then we'll oh my goodness, my desk. Then we'll we'll get started. Hi Duality, hope you're doing well tonight. Just finished watching Last of Us episode 4. Oh, the Last of Us episode this week was so good. It was so good. Hello Celeste. Is it Celeste? Celesticasu. Celesticasu. Can I say Celeste? Hi, Willow. We do get an episode early, yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited. I've played Last of Us, so I, like, know all of the story stuff, but they've been doing, like, things a little bit different, too, so it's kind of cool. Bit of a different interpretation of, some stuff. So, it's very, very neat. Big fan. Is it, would you say Kasu or Kesu? Kasu? I like Celeste, so if you're cool with Celeste, I'll call you Celeste. Hi, Ellipti. I've watched a playthrough of the game, but I haven't played the game myself. Yeah. I think I have the game for PS4, but I didn't really play it. I played, like, maybe the first, like, 30 minutes. I'm just not a huge fan of shooters, in general. So I was like, and I had already played, or I already seen the game at that point, so no real point in me playing it. But yeah, alright. Gotcha. Alright. Okay, we are going to get started. So if you weren't here for the first chapter, it'll be funny, okay, it's gonna be funny for me trying to summarize, because as we continue, it's gonna get harder to summarize, but essentially last chapter, we met our main character, POV character, who is Carcat, Vantis. He has been accepted into a school, called Salem University. Despite him not knowing what species he is, and not thinking that he has any magical capabilities, he's been invited to the school, and he accepted. He goes there, he meets his roommate, Rose, and he meets, his roommate's, twin brother, Dave, who live, like, right across from him. And they all decide to go, get coffee with some of Dave's other friends, June and Jade. And they all have a great time. Something happens with Rose and Dave where they need to leave early, and Rose is a little upset. Carcat decides to head to the library, and as he heads to the library, he sees a demon, and the demon begins to chase after him, and he runs his way into the library, and tries to hide, and the demon ends up finding him, and for some reason recognizes him and uses his name. Karkat doesn't know who he is and questions him about if he knew him before the event, which is some sort of thing that happened that has caused Karkat to lose all of his memories before the last, like, 5 years, right? So anything back further than 5 years ago, he doesn't remember. So this demon somehow knows him, and upon the demon realizing that Karkat doesn't remember him, the demon leaves. We then, Karkat kind of throws a bit of a fit, and we end up meeting Kanaya, who is the main library assistant, and Kanaya comforts Karkat, and Karkat eventually goes home. Karkat goes back to Rose at his dorm, and he's saying, like, damn, like, I fucking met this weird-ass demon, and Dave is there with Rose, and Dave is like, wait, do you mean this guy? And he shows a picture of the demon with Dave, and Karkat's like, yeah, wait, that's fucking him. And Dave's like, oh god, and Rose is like, oh Christ, okay. And Dave is able to summon this demon, and upon Dave summoning the demon is kind of freaked out, and the demon goes by the name Solux, and Solux realizes Karkat's there and wants to get the fuck out. Karkat accuses him of knowing him and wants to know what his deal is. Solux refuses to talk until Dave kind of prompts him, and to make up for Solux kind of being an asshole, Solux agrees to make a deal with Karkat to answer 5 questions completely truthfully. Karkat uses 2 questions, I think. Karkat uses 2 questions, yeah, and saves the rest, and Solux bamps out, and they are left wondering who the fuck he, like Karkat is left wondering how the fuck he knew him, because Dave and Rose also don't know about Karkat and don't know why Solux is being cagey about this. Is this chapter about the same length as the last one? Yes, most of the chapters are about the same length. So this stream will hopefully go for about 2 hours, I'm assuming, based on the speed that I read last time. Theory: Karkat's made a deal with Solux in the past involving Karkat's memory of himself. I have no clue. So I have already read Alternate Universe, so I already know all the stuff. So I'm not going to be speculating because I already know things. But I am happy to see any speculation and read any theories and stuff in chat because it's fun. But I will do my best to remain unbiased and not give away things. Alright, so let's get started. It's chapter 2 time. Okay. Okay. Chapter 2, Scary Monsters and Super Creeps. You have 2 days to settle into your new life, during which you discover a few things. Firstly, that textbooks are wildly expensive. Secondly, that the food served in the campus cafeteria is best described as simply okay. And lastly, that Rose shares your love of coffee and not talking first thing in the morning. You're content to both sit there bleary-eyed on the sofa with coffee as you both wake up in pretty much total silence. Also, on your list of discoveries is that Dave, June, and Jade all seem really nice, but mysteriously whenever you spend time with them, Solux is suddenly absent. He's definitely avoiding you. You suppose there's a certain logic to it. You can't ask him questions if he can't find you. Unfortunately for him, the 2 of you are still enrolled in classes, and being that you're in the same foundation classes, he has to see you. He doesn't evidently have to sit next to you, but being as Dave wants to sit with his sister and his friend while you want to stick with Rose, it turns out that he ends up near you. The lecture hall is bench seating, and you end up sat between Rose and Dave, with June and Jade on Rose's other side, and Solux just on the other side of Dave. Are you gonna be cool, Rose? Please be cool, Dave whispers across you. When you have so famously claimed to have soaked up our entire family's supply of cool, how could I possibly be? Rose replies a little sharply. So what if you are, well, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I have to, like, get into it. So what if you know it all already? You can always test out after a class or 2 if it looks that way, Solux suggests, leaning on Dave's shoulder to look at Rose. I don't see that going well. Besides, reliable sources of information and all that. I never claimed to know it all, Rose says with a shake of her head. You have no idea what they're talking about. A female professor walks into the room who you think is human. She looks it at least. She moves to stand behind the desk at the front of the room. You'd notice before, but there is a walnut on the table, and before it a range of other objects. A key, a door handle, a nutcracker, a hammer, and a chef's knife. With her presence in the room, everyone naturally starts to go quiet. When the room is totally silent, she begins to speak. Good morning, class. Welcome to Magical Languages 101, your primer course to several specific magical languages, and a course which will hopefully give you an understanding of how languages work altogether. In this class, you'll work through several languages until you cast the same spell in all of them, she explains. A student in the front class raises their hand, and the teacher looks their way. What spell will it be? They ask. The teacher seems to think on her words for a moment before speaking. I don't know how many of you have found your way through the park near here, but when you do, you will find a memorial statue to the Salem witch burnings. Magic was not always accepted, so you will be expected to learn what was often the first spell which is taught their apprentices, hoping they would never need it. A spell of fire resistance, she says gravely. She holds out one hand and a ball of flame bursts into existence. She raises her other, and a ring of light forms before her fingers and runs down her arm as she sticks it into the fire. Perfectly cast, you can hold yourself in fire entirely without harm. You'll be casting this on yourself as your final exam for my course, she says, and muttering springs across the room. Yes, she says, suddenly looking in your direction. You can see that Solux has his hand raised. Seems a little pointless for me. I can do that without magic, he points out, and the teacher laughs. She extinguishes the flame and shakes her hands out. Yes, you do have a point there. I've never taught a demon before, I must admit. I've had students with some natural heat resistance, but none totally immune like I suspect you are. No matter, you can cast it on someone else. We'll just hold you responsible for their well-being, she says with a shrug. It's okay, dude, I trust you, Dave says quietly. Alright then, let's get started. There are many different magical languages. None are better than the others inherently, but each are better suited to specific tasks than others. Being monolingual in magical languages is simply not good enough. If you look here, I'll show you, the lecturer explains and plucks the walnut from her desk. Here we have a walnut, and what I want to do is open it. Almost every magical language has a spell to open things, but some languages execute that operation in this circumstance better than others. It's about choosing the right tool for the job. Every item I have on the table can open this walnut. A door handle works best to open a door, but you could certainly smash a nut with it. A key is best suited for a lock, and a knife works better on flesh. Yet both could prise open a walnut shell with skillful leverage. A hammer will open it just like a door handle will, but there's no promise on what the inside will be like afterwards. The nutcracker is the best tool for the job, and so every situation will have the most ideal language for the job. If you want to open a door instead, your choice will be different, she explains and cracks the walnut open with a nutcracker. She pops it in her mouth and chews it with a big grin on her face. Who can name me some magical languages? She asks and turns to the board. Basic, June calls out. Yes, standard human magical code language, standardized relatively recently. It is as it sounds. The teacher nods and writes it up. Basilisk, someone else says. Oh, good. A language adapted from the Nagas. Very wide library of function and is very good for spells that keep running in the background. Till death. I'm going to say Ath, but till death is the proper way to say it. Till death, Solux suggests, and you see the teacher laugh slightly. I suppose, yes, Ath is known as the infernal magical language used by demons of all stripes. For obvious reasons, not much is known about it, beyond the very powerful curses it can inflict and the binding agreement it makes. It's a language very tethered on the concept of death. It's proved very tricky for humans to use outside of summoning spells, and only a few have managed it, but I suspect... The lecturer pauses and looks over her shoulders at your group. Rose inhales sharply, and Dave whispers her name super quietly. Well, it won't be taught in this module anymore, don't worry. Anymore? She asks. See? Someone says. Ah, yes, a favorite of mine, developed by the Selkies as they interacted with human witches. A very flexible standard language, if a little prone to water puns. We'll be learning that one. She agrees and writes it down with the others. Java, another person calls out, and a fair few people giggle. You don't. You're too busy writing everything down. No, we don't teach the corporate magical language of Starbucks here, thanks. The teacher groans, her head thumping the board. The list goes on for a while. Lisp, a very old magical language, not taught in this class, but in ancient magical studies. Pascal Wager, a finicky language, but very good for running lots of subprocesses. She'll give you a basic intro into it, and then maybe mechanical magic is for you. SQL, more of a scrying language, but also used in libraries and other storage places for retrieving items or information, and so on. This is a little note. I love how these are all, like, references to, you know, like, coding languages, and that's very fitting for Homestuck, because Homestuck is very steeped in, you know, like, coding type stuff with, like, the Sylladex, and, you know, obviously Tildeth is, the coding language that's used to create Spurb and stuff like that, so I think it's just a really fun little reference that all the magic languages are all, because, like, Basilisk is Python, right? You know, Java, literally C, right? But they make it for, like, Selkies. That's just, I think it's cool. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun little reference. Okay. For today, we are going to walk through... Wait, let me just make sure I'm at the right place. Oh, no. Finally, your teacher has exhausted the list of languages that she's going to take you through and opens a drawer in her desk. From within it, she takes out a green cube about 6 inches wide and is otherwise featureless. She sticks it to a whiteboard off to the side, so you assume it must be magnetic or something. For today, we are going to walk through the basic components of spellcasting. You can cast spells in purely written forms, as I imagine those of you who teleported here will have noticed. You can cast with the addition of physical components, and you can cast with words. However, both the physical components of a spell and the somatic or spoken parts are other ways of expressing written magic. Your spellcasting will be more accurate when you understand the written form, and so that is how you will learn. When you speak a spell, you are mentally embodying those words, but that can lead to sloppiness. Written work is clean, she explains. Can anyone tell me Lalonde's 5 points of spellcasting? Perhaps a Lalonde? David, the teacher says, and looks up right next to you to Dave. Easy, June says under her breath. You can feel the anger radiating from Rose. It's Dave. Dave corrects her. Dave, then, the teacher says by way of amendment. Dave sighs ever so slightly, but then starts to speak, a little louder than normal because the whole class is staring at him. Except for Solux, that is. You note that his tails have curled around Dave's waist as he stares down at the teacher like a cat watching a mouse. You need 5 things. A target for your magic, so what you're doing it to. The use, so what you want the spell to do. The constraint, I guess, that's limitations, so if you've got to do this if part, that's where that goes. A source used to be something divine, so a god, but that doesn't work anymore, so IDK what you want to tether your magic to, but anything you believe in. The power of sunshine and puppies or whatever. And the termination, just to tell it when to stop the spell so you don't make infinite popcorn forever or what have you, Dave explains. Very good. Let's see what we can do. Let's see if we can do that today. I want to turn this block turquoise. Let's see if we can. The teacher nods and moves on. Dave relaxes, and Rose slowly does as well, but you're full of curiosity. The library that you hid in was called the Lalonde Library. Lalonde's 5 points sound like pretty important magical work, and apparently it's Dave's last name, which means it's Rose's too. Are they some big-shot magical family? Is that why Dave is cool wandering around with a demon? The class progresses as you all workshop the process of banging out a spell. The teacher does the hard parts in that she actually codes it, but she gets you to phrase the logic and pulls you up when you all suggest something that won't work. You hadn't considered before how specific you have to be. You know what she means when she says, turn this cube turquoise, but to write out the specific commands are hard. Even putting the object in a circle doesn't solve it, because if you don't specify the cube, you turn everything within there turquoise. Someone has the idea of measuring the cube and specifying to only turn things within that dimension in the circle turquoise. Then you have to define turquoise, and then specify how long you want the thing to say turquoise, and when the magic can stop. The hard part is the source. All magic has a source. Before 5 years ago, almost all magic was divinely tethered. Faith in a higher power fueled our magic. People making machines tethered their spells to Hephaestus, the weather to Freya or Thor. People varied depending on their personal allegiances, but we knew the gods existed because our magic worked. We asked for their power and were granted it. 5 years ago, all that stopped. Seers stopped receiving visions, and magic tethered to the gods mostly failed. That which didn't was ironically sloppy spellcasting, where people had tethered faith to their faith, that it would work rather than the gods themselves. Verbal spellcasting is less precise, like I said. The event broke our magical connection with the divine and damaged a great many things and people, she explains. Hi, Gay Jesus, thank you for the sub. You remember. You remember opening your eyes, laid on your back on a road in some dirt road in the middle of nowhere. Georgia, with nothing but a key in your hand and your own name on your lips. Countless other people woke up like you, and others had huge chunks missing in their memory. Everyone lost at least a little. It was pandemonium. Demons suddenly on Earth, and buildings with apartments and requiring the kind of key that you woke up with. Everyone who lost everything was mysteriously gifted somewhere to live. It was chaos. People had to rework magic on so much stuff all over the world. So much was damaged. You were damaged. Worst of all, no one knows why it happened. No one knows why the gods are no longer answering anything, and why their magic no longer sticks. Now we draw from some other sources. The heat of the Earth's core, the brilliance of sunshine, the power of the sea. You can tether magic to the moon, or even your personal belief, although that's a lot less stable. I personally recommend the power of the tide, and as I'm writing this in sea, that always goes well. Your teacher goes on and fills out the part of the circle with her arcane writing. Alright, she says, stepping back. What we have here is this. Within this circle is a cube 6 inches in height, width, and depth. Its appearance shall be altered to the color turquoise as perceived by the human eye to be between green and blue. It shall remain this color for 60 seconds. After 60 seconds from the spell's beginning, it shall end. I will this to be done by the raging power of the sea, the reliability of the tides, and the majesty of the ocean. Are we happy with that? This is so different from Ath, Solux mutters. I'm not sure about this, Rose says quietly, but most of the rest of your class is nodding. Your teacher shrugs and smacks her hand on the board. The circle flares with blue light, but within the circle nothing happens. Oh, it didn't do anything, you say, but most of your class claps. It did something. I saw magic. I still can, Solux says, but you can see he's looking with all 4 eyes. It's still green, Jade protests. As some of you may be realizing, what you have done is not change the color of the cube. What you have done is made a color changing test to tell someone if they're human or not. If you are, you'll see that the cube is turquoise. If you aren't in possession of human eyes, it will still appear green. That is why magic is tricky. The teacher grins. She goes on to explain how you'll be attending magical language labs in C, first of all, before moving on to other languages, being tested on each one for your fireproof test. Though seeing how well just changing the color of something went, you're a little hesitant to jam your hand into fire. Still, your eyes linger on the cube. You're not human, but maybe that can tell you what you are. You hang back after class and try to catch your teacher. I couldn't see the cube change color, you tell her, as you hold your notebook over your chest. Because you're not human. Wait, did you not know that? I've not just revealed some past infidelity in your family, have I? She says as her eyes go wide with alarm. No, I thought I wasn't. I don't remember anything at all. I don't know what I am, though. No one seems to. Could that test me for what I am? You ask and point at the cube that's now sat at her desk. Oh, strictly speaking, no. I simplified the code when I read it out, but the thing with magic is that it relies on your understanding. As your fellow students settled on the human eye as the metric for color perception, I allowed it because I have human eyes and I know exactly what they see. The statement refers to an experience that I possess. I couldn't do that with another species, she explains, and your shoulders slump in disappointment. That said, if you found people of other species willing to execute the same spell with the words altered, you might have more luck. Unfortunately, tests of species are notoriously hard because species as a concept is very artificial. Species crossbreed all the time, so it's hard to define what's what, or how much of a species you have to be counted as one. It's a minefield, and politically not one that many people want to wade into. Asking a spell to test your species is akin to asking if a food tastes good. It's more of an opinion. Granted, there are things unique to each species, but it's complicated, I'm afraid, she says a little regretfully. I thought that was too easy of an answer, you say unhappily. If it was that easy, you wouldn't have had to wait this long to find out what you are. When you got your ID, surely someone could have tested you if it was possible to make such a test. You can see why people might not want to make a test for that kind of thing. There are purists out there who don't like species intermingling, not even within just humans. Plenty of Fae are notorious for holding themselves to a higher standard than mere humans. Being able to see if someone was pure human or not would be a nightmare. Even if finding out what you were would benefit you, it's pretty clear that it's a can of worms no one wants to open. Much easier to claim that magic just doesn't allow it. Thanks, anyway. This was interesting. You thank her. No problem. I hope to see you in the labs. Your teacher nods and turns back to the board and starts cleaning it off. Heading outside, you find that your friends seem to have all left. That's fair, you suppose. You don't know each other that well, and you didn't have plans after. Plus, they didn't know how long you might take. You ignore the sting and figure that you should do some more learning on your own instead. You don't have any other classes for another hour, so you could use that time wisely. You make your way over to the library again, this time not at a full run, and this time going through the barriers with your card instead of launching yourself at the library like a siege projectile from a fucking trebuchet or something. To your luck, Kanaya is in her clear office and looks up when you wave at her through the glass. She points to the door, so you let yourself in. There is a special place in hell for people who write in library books, and when I find who did this, I will send them there after flaying their skin off, Kanaya says by way of greeting. Savages, you agree, and move swiftly on. Do we have books about the library or its history, you ask? Kanaya turns from an open book on the desk and looks pensive for a moment or two. What exactly are you looking for? The architecture? The history of the land? Or, she asks, why is it called the Lalonde Library, you ask? Oh, that's easy. It's for Dr. Lalonde. She was a truly outstanding witch. Her work was incredible, Kanaya says brightly, her skin going appropriately bright too. Who was she? I've literally never heard of her, you say. Really? Well, she was, I think perhaps still is a witch. She was an expert in magical languages, but she specialized in demonic ones, timing hugely powerful spells on the death of celestial objects. She was very open-minded about species as well. It's really thanks to her part that I could study here at all. A genuine shining star. It's a real shame she's not around anymore. Kanaya dims at the end of that little speech. Why isn't she? You press. I'm not really sure. There's a lot of different stories. She had children, and the office stance of the university was that she had retired to look after them. But I was an undergraduate when she was still here. After she got back from maternity leave, she seemed odd. There's a rumor that it was a magical accident and that something happened to her. Something that stopped her work forever. It's all rumor, though, and she still is regarded as a real prodigy. But maybe there's something to that. The whole candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long kind of thing. Kanaya sighs. You're starting to feel guilty now. Rose and Dave probably aren't cool with people poking at this kind of thing, and here you are doing just that. This isn't how you make friends, stupid. Why do you ask? Kanaya asks you slowly. My roommate, her last name is Lalonde. Her brother lives a few floors up from us with the demon that chased me in here before, you explained. Ah, that's tricky. I didn't realize how much time had flown if her children are here now. Still, I suppose I shouldn't be surprised if one of her children has an affinity for the demonic as well. It's funny, I can't remember anything about her children. I remember that she went off on maternity leave, but oh well, Kanaya shrugs. You do a little back of the napkin math. Kanaya was an undergraduate here when Dr. Lalonde still worked for this university. She'd just had her kids and returned to work and then left again. That means Kanaya has at least been here for as long as Dave and Rose have been alive, and yet she looks your age. Well, obviously she does. She's a vampire. They don't age. I can see you brimming with the urge to ask me exactly how old I am, Kanaya says, her eyes narrowing at you. That strikes as something that would be wildly rude to do, you say tentatively. Good instinct. Kanaya smiles sweetly. There's a fang in that smile. It could be accidental, but you suspect not. Change the subject. Rose, my roommate, seems really angry about a lot of this. One of our teachers called her and Dave out directly to answer a question on the Lalondian 5 points. You literally just learned this, dipshit. Lalonde's 5 points of spellcasting? Kanaya suggests. You nod gratefully. You're gonna have to reread your notes later, aren't you? I suppose no one gets to be that well known without inspiring a certain amount of jealousy. For her children to show up at the same school could irritate some people. Perhaps they think they're getting a free pass or something, or they're just trying to see if they're as good as her mother, or as their mother. Kanaya says. That sounds about right. Guilt festers in your stomach, making you feel sick. I feel bad for prying now. It's probably what everyone else is going to be doing, you say quietly. Well, you didn't know, and besides, I think it's what you do with the information that counts. You came here wanting knowledge, and there's nothing wrong with that, Kanaya reasons with you. She's trying to make you feel better. Yeah, I'm sure Pandora told herself the same thing, but I've opened this box now, haven't I? Well, fuck it. I don't think either of them should be held to different standards or get questioned on why they're here. It's no one's business, and everyone can just fuck off, you say firmly as you settle on your stance. Rose is your roommate, who was nice to you and invited you out with her friends. Dave seems nice enough, if deeply odd. Who their mother has is no bearing on that, and you refuse to treat them differently. I don't think I understood the descriptor of aggressively nice until I met you. You are both nice and aggressive all at once. Kanaya smiles at you. You make some vague noise of protest and then some fumbled excuse to leave, and the entire time that you back off, Kanaya is just smiling at you as if she's worked you out and finds you rather amusing to behold. Damn her. You have ample time until your next class, which is great because you have no idea where it is. And it turns out that the amount of time it takes to find it is almost the exact amount of time you had left anyway. When you step inside the door of Xenobiology 101, you find your group already there. Jade spots you right away and waves wildly, which settles the question of whether you were going over there. We came back to see if you were done with the teacher and you were gone, Jade exclaims in her lack of indoor voice. As a fellow volume problem haver, you empathize and do not judge. Totally gonzo, June agrees with a nod. A fantastic addition to that conversation, you say flatly before you remember that you're trying to have these people like you. Thankfully, June just snorts and rolls her eyes at you. What were you talking about? What were you talking to her about anyway? Rose asks and pulls a chair out for you. The tables here are all taller with tall stools, so you're sat next to her. In front of you are Dave and Solux, currently absorbed in their own discussion. It didn't change color for me, because I'm not human. I wanted to know if that spell could be altered to tell me what I am, but it can't. Then I went to the library, you say, glossing over why you did that. You mentioned about applying there. Are you going to do it? Rose asks, making an assumption that you won't correct her on. I think so. I can't say no to money or unfettered access to books, can I? You say. Based on the kind of books they have, I imagine that access will be somewhat fettered, but I take your point, Rose nods. Dave... Solux whines. His head clunks on the table in front of you, and that attracts your attention. His tails are still and hanging straight down in what you think is probably a pretty morose way. His shirt is actually slipped up a little from where he's leant over, and you can see the point where they diverge from his spine. It's higher than you might have thought. You think maybe his black jeans have a slight notch in them at the band, but you're not totally sure. His tails don't start where your tailbone ends, that's for sure. You vaguely want to see what his skeleton must look like. Does his spinal cord split there too, or does he just not have that? Is he just all magic inside? I'm just saying that it sounds like you don't want to be here, Dave says. It's not that. I didn't say that. I know all this already, Solux complains. You don't know that you have, or you don't know that you know it all. You don't know that you know all of it. And even if you did, isn't it interesting to see what they know? What are you gonna do if you're not here? Play Call of Duty? Dave asks. Okay, 1, video games are always a good thing to do with any amount of time, and 2, you know I hate that game. It's full of demons who feed on nerd rage and grieving humans who don't know what's going on. Me being there is just awkward. Also, I'm literally the smartest person you know, so I don't really need to be here, Solux says. Does he always brag like this? It's really irritating. Next to you, Rose narrows her eyes at him, but Solux doesn't seem to see. Dude, besides you, I know like 5 people now. I wouldn't brag, Dave says flatly. Well done insulting literally everyone, including outing your own very poor social skills, Dave. I will still be getting revenge for this slight, though. Rose interrupts, and Dave looks around with some alarm, at least until he wipes the expression off his face. Why were you listening? He asks. I'm always listening, Rose says ominously, the effect somewhat ruined by June snickering next to her. Creepy. Hi, Carcat. Solux, be nice and say hi. Dave nudges him. Solux looks at you scornfully, this time with just his 2 main eyes again. Why does he only open the little ones sometimes? What does it mean? Solux blinks lazily and raises one hand with a middle finger extended to you. If you're gonna try and claim that's how demons say hi and spin some cultural sensitivity thing at me when I protest, we can just cut this short, and I'll tell you to go fuck yourself, you tell him. That requires more shape-shifting and effort than I can be bothered with. Pass. Solux shrugs. You're putting a lot of mental energy into not considering exactly how that might work, given the very little you know about how demons work physically at all. Solux is just staring you down like he's waiting for you to crack in one way or another. You're starting to get the impression that everything is a game with him, only you don't know what the game is, what the rules are, and you think he's stolen a lot of the pieces. The match ends when an older man with goat legs comes into the room. He's wearing a very formal jacket, shirt and tie, as if to offset his goat legs. You're not super hot on your xenobiology, hence the primer class, but even you know a satyr when you see one. Good morning, yes, still morning. Good morning, class. Quick show of hands, does anyone have any specific intent or interest in going into the medical field? Yes, this course is an absolute requirement for that, but if you are interested in that specifically, I can put links up on the online board for that. Ah, yes, good, he says in a faltering voice, a few people in the room raising their hands. Soluk shifts around in his seat and you relax again. Whatever. You're not going to let him distract you. Besides which, this is a class that could well help you figure out what species you are. And if you know you can get him to confirm that for you, in fact, he could well be trying to distract you just so you don't find out, that sneaky fucker. The first 15 minutes of class are the basic explanation of the textbook you'll need, how you'll be graded, and finally, a justification for the course even existing. To make properly integrated society, we need to know what is and isn't safe for people of all species to be sure that we don't accidentally hurt someone. Later courses will go over specific illnesses to various species and how to heal those, but this first 101 course is essentially a primer on how not to harm, and how to learn from the past human interactions with other species. This last part your teacher says with some distaste. Some of the information in this course was gathered through unfortunate means, and I've gone through every trouble to be sure that no unreasonably upsetting images are included, and that those that are taken from ethical sources. And I will of course tell you beforehand. Naturally, we are talking about how our biologies differ, and how not to hurt, so hurt itself is a topic, but still, your teacher says. Nevertheless, I like to start off with a topic that won't personally involve anyone, the teacher says and nudges his glasses up to his nose before turning to the board. Demons! Did he not see? Dave starts. Shh, don't ruin it, June hisses. Solux reaches his arm back to her, and the pair silently fist bump, and eagerly wait for the moment when the teacher will notice that there is someone in class who is in fact a demon. Demons, naturally, come from hell. However, after the event, they seem to reside on Earth. Divine symbols used to be a ward against demons, but these no longer cause harm. Presumably as these items are no longer imbued with the magic they once held, the teacher explains. On the board, he writes demons at the top, and under it, as the headings of 2 columns, myth and fact. Under myth, he writes holy symbols. Around you, the other students have noticed Solux's presence and species, but they are too staying awkwardly silent. You watch as Solux's tail swishes from one side to another. Any other suggestions? The teacher asks, still facing the board. No one answers for a while. Holy water? A brave guy on the other side of the room pipes up. Excellent, yes. Holy water is fatal to demons. The teacher nods and writes that in the fact side. And not really, Solux says loudly. The teacher turns, sees Solux and pales. For one thing, priests can't make that shit anymore. No holy powers, so you're relying on old stocks. Second, it's really more of a strength thing. The holier the person, the stronger the holy water. You're talking anything from, I just put alcohol hand gel on and discovered I have some cuts I didn't know about, to industrial acid, but the odds of that second kind being around is rare. Most humans weren't that holy. It's not fun, but it probably won't kill you. Kind of a Russian roulette deal, though, Solux explains lazily. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. I didn't mean to offend, the teacher apologizes. You didn't. I wasn't really into this, but now the idea of seeing what you think stops me has me interested, Solux says. To your teacher's credit, he recovers a little and stops looking so nervous. Well, I'm certainly interested in what you have to say. I'm all about the truth, he says with a nod. Alright. Solux shrugs, and so the teacher continues. We would normally put down salt, not as something that can hurt itself, but rather a line of salt is effective for keeping a demon out, he goes on, and moves towards the board again. Kinda? I can't cross a big line of the stuff, but I could burn or destroy what it's on and break that line. It's more of a delay, Solux answers. Exorcisms? The teacher says. That'd work on anyone possessing anyone. If you caught me in someone else's body, you could boot me to hell back that way. But it wouldn't work right now. At best, you'd screw with my form, but that's unlikely. Solux says as he seems to mull that over. What else should we be aware of, then? The teacher asks. Now Solux has to come up with the goods. I mean, a lot of stuff hurts. Being stabbed is no fun for anyone. For most demons, though, you've got stuff that can disincorporate them, so send them back to hell to reform, and that stuff can kill them. The tougher you are, the tighter that list gets. A deity smiting would get anyone, so I don't think that counts. Silver or iron to the heart will send you back down, but it doesn't kill. You essentially have to unmake a demon to kill them, which then means you have to unmake a demon to kill them, which then means, are you stronger than what made them? You've got to one-up that power level. Obviously, the more hurt you are when you decide into that, the better your odds are, but you can't unmake a demon accidentally. You're more likely to accidentally hurt one and have them decide to eat you to settle the score, Solux says, and he rubs the back of his neck as he talks, and you get the feeling he's not totally comfortable with the topic. You don't blame him. The teacher makes a dubious noise behind his glasses and his eyes narrow at Solux. He turns back to the class and starts to talk again as he writes on the board. A lot of historical information on demons has come from unfortunate earlier interactions with humanity and demonkind has had with each other. And until recently, or relatively recently, proper factual information on demons was hard to come by. It was all hearsay and questionable sources. He goes on and writes a few things on the board. The slaying of Furcus, banishment of Aemon. You're taking notes on these things, so it's not as if you're watching Solux, but you do see him turn and look at Dave. It's just that the light of his eyes is noticeable. He's not even dead, Solux mutters. Dave pats him sympathetically on the back and then freezes at the teacher's next words. Dr. Lalonde, of course, being an esteemed demonologist, managed to trap several demons over the course of her life, and leverage their freedom for answers on their species. I do apologize if the mention of that is upsetting. The teacher glances to Solux but moves on without waiting for an answer. She was able to ascertain that demons have a purpose, and that they both are meant to fulfill that purpose, but they also draw power from it. They owe loyalty to those who have pledged it to, or the demon who made them. She also ascertained that demons cannot get drunk, do not sleep, and primarily feed off humans. The teacher explains. Okay, I'm not staying here for this, Solux says and turns to look at Dave. Beam me up, Dave agrees and holds out his hand. Solux nods, takes it, and the two of them vanish in a burst of bicolored synthetic smoke. Your teacher shakes his head and continues lecturing. You take prolific notes about all things the teacher says, and with Solux not here, his tone shifts. Demons are inherently untrustworthy. Their inclinations are to lie and trick others, and one has to be very clear to get the truth out of them. Also, never wager anything with a demon that you are not prepared or expecting to lose, he says. You're regaled with tales of deals gone horribly wrong in the past, of witches who thought they'd restrain a demon only to have their protections fail and get dragged back to hell. It becomes apparent that one such witch was a friend of his, and suddenly his very biased attitude makes a lot of sense. This is bullshit. You write on the corner of your page, tear it off and slide it over to Rose. She nods ever so slightly but keeps taking notes. Outside, rain beats against the window despite an earlier pleasant day. The turn in the weather seems fitting to your current mood. Incubi and succubi will seduce you and steal your soul, maybe eat your corpse too. Small hell imps will swarm and kill and eat and then steal your soul. Demons who specialize in tempting people with deals want, you guessed it, your soul. None of them should ever be trusted, at all, ever. You stop taking notes about halfway through. June stormed past you the moment the class is finished. Rose stands and neatly shuts her notebook with an unreadable expression. You share a look with Jade, who looks about as uneasy as you feel. So, you say as you pass the classroom door with Rose and Jade. That was fucked up. What was this? Oh, I dread to think what he's going to say when he gets to Fae. It's not like my kind have that great of a reputation either, Jade says uneasily. Yeah, Fae are generally regarded warily by humans. Their upside, however, is how much human myth about them focuses on how beautiful they are, and so there's generally a certain exotic attraction to the danger there. You imagine there's a good number of people who chase that appeal with demons too. After all, succubi and incubi still exist, but they're pretty wildly understood to be bad. We can't be the first people to have noticed this, and I very precisely recorded everything that he said, so if one of you wants to complain, you can, Rose says, and patting her back gently. She's not going to complain, I bet you can guess why. You should tell Rose what you did, sooner rather than later. Jade, could you give me a second? I just want to say something to Rose real quick, you say, and try to stick to your guns. Jade looks around at you expectantly, and you think for a horrible moment she doesn't realize that you meant you want her to leave so that you can speak to Rose privately. Then you see understanding flicker on her face and she nods. Right, yes, I should go find June as well. She seemed really upset. Jade nods. I should venture that she's gone to see Solix and Dave, given the subject that was just under discussion, Rose suggests. Jade bids you both a goodbye and makes herself scarce, leaving you and Rose alone in the hallway. Rose looks at you, her unnatural purple eyes intense and unsettling in a way that you can't just put down and spill your gullet. She waits for you silently to speak, her gaze boring holes into your skull as you procrastinate. You falter. Good start. You cough. Try again. You seemed really upset before on the phone this morning in class when they mentioned Dr. Lalonde. The library is called that too, and when I mentioned the library before, you seemed irritated, so you try to do that thinking before you speak thing. You figure, going on how your interactions with people seem to go, like you've only got a limited number of uses of thinking before you open your mouth per month, so this seems like a good time to cash in one of those rare tokens of thoughtfulness. And, Rose says, she's entirely inscrutable. And I didn't want to assume things, so I went to the library and asked there, and found out she was this genius witch who seemed crazy levels of revered by everyone, that she had kids and then never really came back. It's kind of an assumption, not a wild one, but I figured those kids were you and Dave, that maybe you were pissed because whoever was on the phone assumed you were, or you were or weren't deserving of a place because of your name or something. I looked into it because I was worried about screwing up and sticking my foot in something. It's not like I have had friends before, and we have to live together, so I really didn't want to fuck you off by opening my big mouth and asking tactless questions. But now I feel a little like sneaking behind around your back to look shit up without saying anything is a shit thing to do as well. So I thought I should come clean before it comes to bite me in the ass. I'm sorry I invaded your privacy like a creep, you say in literally one big breath. Rose looks at you with an expression of faint surprise on her face. You are nothing, if not intense, Carcat, Rose says finally. That's a funny way of saying stupid and loud, you mutter. And at the very least she laughs, though probably at you instead of with you. Not quite. I do appreciate your honesty. I must admit that I'm not used to such forthright transparency about the feelings and intentions of others. Dave and Solix can be evasive in their own ways, and June, I think, prefers that no one knows how she feels about some things, herself included. If you must know, Dr. Lalonde is indeed my mother. Needless to say, she's Dave's as well, because, well, that's how it works. I very much got into this school on my own merit, but I feel going through all the trouble was wasted, as it seems like people have already decided how me and Dave must have got here. My mother is a complicated subject that I'd rather keep relatively close to the chest if that's alright with you. But that said, if you have a question so burning that you'd be inclined to research it from other sources, I'd rather you came to me first, Rose nods. Really? That's, yeah, I can absolutely keep my nose out of all of this. That's completely reasonable. You nod fervently. Your mind lingers on the subject of your last class and how her demonology research was being used. There's clearly something to that, and it can't be a coincidence that Dave is tangled up with Solux and whatever thing they have. Rose describes Solux as Dave's friend, but the way Solux seems to listen to what Dave says and wants makes you feel like it's more than that. You look like you already have a question. Go on, Rose says slyly. You hesitate, but she did say to ask, so you may as well. Her specialty was demons, right? You begin. One of her specialties, yes. She had a lot of skill in languages as well as the theory of how magic works under all that. Conjuration, creating things from nothing, was a specialty of hers too. But yes, demonology was her most recent area of interest. Though I will say the research quoted in that class was wildly out of date, and not at all in line what she thinks is true. Rose sneers a little at the mention of your class, and you relax a little. Their mother was not hugely anti-demon, or their mother not being hugely anti-demon makes more sense with Solux being around Dave. Well, that was what I was wondering. What does she think of Solux being around, you ask? Oh, well, her personal feelings on anything is a complicated matter, but she seemed to have no problem with him living with us most of the time. He never set off any of the protective wards in her house, so she clearly allows him in. They talk, have a few shared interests. They seem to get on fine. He's very helpful with her, actually, Rose says, and doesn't elaborate on exactly what she means by help. Still, you suppose that's a question answered. Alright, I feel a little less guilty now. Are we cool? You ask. We'll be just fine, Carcat. Come on, I want to talk to the others about that class. You nod and the two of you head back to your dorms. You don't even bother going into your room and instead head right up to the 6th floor to Dave and Solix's room. Even from the hallway you can hear voices inside, agitated-sounding voices. Rose knocks. Almost immediately afterward, June opens the door with a face like a thundercloud. She is super pissed off. June steps back and Rose steps into the room. You hesitate for a second and follow. Dave and Solix's room is set up very differently to yours. Your shared space had a classy, mystic, peaceful vibe to it. Excuse me. This is a lot more frat boy. Posters for video games, comics, and other inscrutable things plastered the walls, and there are no less than 6 game consoles hooked up to a sizable TV. At the far end of the room, there's a whole bunch of technical equipment held up in what your room is the square dining table. There's a grotesquely colored skateboard that somehow hurts your eyes to look at, stored inexplicably in a glass-fronted case on the wall. The sink is filled with dirty dishes, and though you're too far away to touch it, you'd bet the kitchen counters were either covered in crumbs or mysteriously sticky. Gross. Most weird of all is this thing that's hanging from the ceiling over the sofa. It's like a hammock, but huge and square, tethered to the ceiling at all four corners. In fact, there's a few things like that. On the far end of the room, near all the equipment, there's a felt-looking ball hanging from the ceiling. The floor of the room is black stone, and you can feel it's oddly warm even through the rubber soles of your shoes. The square thing on the ceiling shifts all by itself, and then Solux's face pops over the edge of it. You instantly know what it reminds you of, and you laugh, and a laugh explodes out of you before you can stop it. Oh, fuck, it's like a ferret hammock, but for idiots. You laugh far too loudly, making everyone in the room wince. The window thankfully doesn't explode, but you clap your hand over your mouth all the same. And you're like a megaphone with legs, clearly just jealous of my far superior bed. Envy is a sin, you know. Solux sneers, dangling his arms over the edge as well now, so he can flip you off with both hands. Oh god, you start, but Solux hisses at the word, all four eyes narrowing to slits. You know, Don't say that word. He shifts his sentence halfway through, but you know where he was going with it. You know how he feels about you saying it. Except you don't know because you don't remember jack shit. I don't remember, actually. Why don't you tell me? You say sharply. Why don't you try and make me? Solux hisses down at you. Do I gotta get a little water pistol and squirt you two when you're gonna act like this regularly? Dave groans from where he's slouched on the sofa. Oh yes, we do need that, June gasps as her demeanor does an instant about-face. No, we don't, you say hurriedly, because you have no desire for people to squirt you with water, as if you're misbehaving, as if you're some misbehaving cat. Solux grumbles and slips out of sight inside his, you're going to continue to call it this, ferret hammock. You two are so funny, but I do feel like you'd benefit from having your heads knocked together, Jade says. You're a little ashamed to say that you only just noticed her standing there. Maybe it was Fey magic disguising her, or maybe you were just too busy being judgmental about the cleanliness of Dave and Solux's place to see her. You're not unobservant. No, never. Hey, none of this is my fault. Let's not smack my head against anything, you tell her. From inside the hammock you hear a childish, high-pitched parroting of your own voice. You resist the urge to throw something at him. Just. Entertaining as that is, should we discuss that class? Rose suggests. June was saying I got more jacked up after we left, Dave answers her. It really did. I wonder what he's going to say about other species, too, Jade says. We could complain, but I would say that me or Dave doing so would look bad. I also doubt that Solux will be listened to either, Rose says. We can complain, I'll do it, June says and throws her hands up in the air. It's a compulsory class, though. Is there another one with a teacher who doesn't suck? Because otherwise we have to go to the class if we ever want to study anything else here. No, you don't. Solux's voice comes from within the soft confines of the hammock. You have the urge to go over there and poke it from underneath, but that would be petty and probably rude. You still want to, though. We just have to pass the test. We can, in theory, test out of the class, Rose says thoughtfully. I don't think I know enough to test out, though, Jade points out. I know a little bit about a lot of species. I lived in one of the provided buildings, which had a huge proportion of non-humans, so I've got a passing familiarity with a lot. Not a lot of depth, though. I don't think I could pass either. You agree? Solux could teach us about demons and Jade about Fae, right? Dave suggests. We could form our own study group, do our own research, and then teach each other, Rose says, and there's a kind of chaotic mischief glinting in her eyes. One problem. I bet that guy sets the tests. If we answer things that are actually true, but he says is wrong, we're no better off, you point out. It's a good thing, or it's no good to you knowing unbiased facts about people if the guy is determining what is and isn't the right answer, is a festering nutsack of bias, isn't it? Well, we could teach ourselves the truth and then give the right answers on the test. That way we've learned and we passed. June suggests with little air quotes around the word right just to show how little she thinks of that. And we know the right answers how? Is one of us gonna have to keep going to class and sharing notes or what? Dave asks, doing the air quotes thing too. You're starting to feel that's out of hand. Oh no, but I bet he keeps the test questions, his class notes, and all that somewhere. It'd be a shame if those happen to fall into our hands, wouldn't it? June grins deviously. Solux's head appears over the edge. June, it sounds like you're suggesting shenanigans. Solux almost purrs the words out. You, me, midnight, ski masks, tomfoolery, a heist. You in? June beams. She's pulled down the side of Solux's ferret hammock thing, nearly spilling him out of it. He's got a hand on her shoulder to keep him balanced. He's almost nose to nose with her, and his smile is wide slash of sharp teeth. Hell fucking yes. Solux beams and the two of them fist bump. What if you get caught? Jade asks, like the only sane person in the room. They never get caught, Dave and Rose say at the same time with equal levels of exasperation. You get the feeling this is something of a pattern of behavior, and you're quite happy to have nothing to do with it. Nevertheless, I think that the group study is a great idea. I'll get a list of topics together, and we can take turns researching and sharing our knowledge. I'll send you all emails to keep you updated, Rose says with a little formal nod. So serious, much business, Dave says flatly, making Jade giggle. You suppose her main means of communication with people must have been on the internet, so you probably shouldn't judge her too much. Dave, on the other hand, you can totally judge as being a very uncool dweeb with his internet memes, and judge him you will. Before you can open your mouth and mock someone you're trying to be friends with, your phone charm at your wrist flashes and buzzes against your skin. You reach through the charm with your other hand and swipe to accept the call. Hello? You say. Your friends look at you and you figure it's only polite to take the call outside, so you head to the door. 4 bright points of light shine at you from atop the fuzzy hammock at the ceiling. Solix is watching you. Hello, Mr. Vantis. This is Mr. Dewey, the head of the library. I saw that you put an application in through Kanaya, a man with a smooth voice says into your ear. You open the door to Solix and Dave's room and step through. You don't so much as shut it after you as you let it click behind you. Oh, yes, I did, you nod. You hadn't been sure if you were going to go through with it now, but the opportunity is here, you want it. A prickle of something spreads up and down your spine as you stand in the hallway with the phone pressed to your ear. Would you be willing to come by for an interview in, say, an hour? No need to dress formally, we know that you're a student, Mr. Dewey says with a voice like smooth jazz. You're still stood in the hallway and you swear you can feel eyes on you. Of course, an hour would be fine. An hour from now would be fine. Wonderful. See you then, Mr. Vantis, he says, and the call clicks in your ear. You're pretty sure that you're not alone. You may as well take a stab at it. If you're wrong, then who's around to see you look stupid? Is the stalking going to be a regular thing? You ask as you put your phone back. Stalking really implies a pattern of behavior. I'm not stalking you, Solix says, and you turn. And of course he's right there. All 4 of his eyes are open, and you think he's looking at your phone charm. This is the second time that I remember, you point out. Twice isn't a pattern, and I wasn't stalking you the first time because there was no history of doing it before, Solix says. As far as I can remember, you interrupt. And this time isn't stalking you because we established that last time wasn't stalking. Therefore, there's no history of me doing it before, so I'm not stalking you. I'm in the hallway, outside my own room, Solix says lightly, as if you hadn't said anything. Nice job defining stalking in a way that means you can't ever be guilty of it, you snort. That's gotta be some screwy demon logic for sure. Don't know what you're talking about. Who was that on the phone? He asks, jerking his head slightly at your wrist. The head of the library. I applied for a job. Mr. Dewey? You tell him? You ought to remember that name. It would be embarrassing if you forgot it. As in the decimal system for sorting books? Solix asks, squinting at you with his main eyes this time. The asymmetry of the expression is kind of fascinating, but you're not going to stare. It'd be rude. You're trying not to be a douchebag with no friends, and as irritating as Solix is, he has close ties to the people you're trying to become friends with, so it'd be smart not to hack him off completely. Yeah, I thought it was weird, but maybe it's that thing where people get jobs that relate to their names, you say thoughtfully. There's a word for that. Solix frowns. The two of you stand there in silence as you try to remember what it is. From the way Solix is frowning and looking off to the side, you think he is too. Like something... Aptonym. Aptonym, because apt name. Yeah, you snap your fingers as it comes to you. That's what you think is happening there, Solix says. He doesn't sound like he's asking. I mean, I'm not going to be that guy and point it out. I'm sure he gets that all the time. I want the job, obviously, you shrug. Solix closes his eyes and sighs. When he opens them again, it's just a large set. Can I ask you a question? You blurt out without thinking. Evidently, he replies. Why? Okay, I have 2 eyes and I generally use them both. If I'm only using one, it's because I've deliberately shut the other if I'm trying to do something specific, like, I don't know, look through a narrow gap or something, and having both open would screw with that. You have 4, and sometimes you're using all of them, and sometimes you're not. Why, you ask. You've just answered your own question, and I didn't need to be here for that, he tells you somewhat irritably. Okay, but that makes me think that the smaller set sees something different than the main set, and it's confusing them, and it's confusing using them all unless you're actively trying to do whatever they do, you go on. He just looks at you blankly. Should I take that means that just because you said I can answer, or I can ask you a question doesn't mean you're going to answer them? You guess? He can be taught. I'm leaving, Solix says and turns back towards his door. Wait, Solix, you call after him. Solix stops but doesn't turn around. Look, I don't know how you knew me before the event. If we were friends or what, you obviously knew me well enough that me not remembering you threw you. I know me not remembering isn't my fault, but I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It can't have been nice, you start to tell him sympathetically. You don't get to finish because he goes from facing away from you to sinking his hands into your hoodie and slamming you against the wall. His face is so close to yours, and the terrified part of your brain are just noting how many teeth he has, how sharp they are, and how very close to your maulable face they are. Don't you dare. Don't you dare feel sorry for me. I don't want or need your fucking pity. I never have, and I never will. So don't fucking try, Carcat Vantis. I know your true name, and I could destroy you with it. If you ever pull that shit on me, I will make your life a living hell. Do you understand me? Trust me, I know hell, and I won't hesitate. So fuck off. Soluk snarls right in your face. He shoves you hard and vanishes in a flash of light and an imitation vape cloud. What the fuck? You were just trying to apologize for hurting his feelings, and he goes all Hannibal Lecter on you? Did you just do something you're not supposed to with a demon, or something or is he just personally just deranged? What in God's name just happened there? The wall is your friend for a good few minutes as you get your nerves back and feel confident enough to go down the stairs without falling them from shaking legs. You sure as shit don't want to go back into his room after that. Despite being told not to dress, you go back to your room and check that you don't have food on your shirt, and spend a little time to try to coax your hair into behaving. That effort is ultimately fruitless, as the moment you step outside, you can feel the slightest breeze undo all your hard work. You make it to the library in good time and stick your head inside the glass office to see Kanaya. Hey, they called me for an interview, you tell her in a whisper. Then you figure you're being dumb and just step inside, sealing the door and letting the silent spell work its magic. I know, I'm supposed to take you to one of the offices to wait for your interview to start. Come on. Kanaya nods and gets to her feet. She leads you down the hallway through a door marked staff only. We do book restoration down here. The university is lucky enough to have some very old and valuable texts that we've been able to take care of. Those ones there are drying for some restoration. They're completely priceless, so please be careful, Kanaya explains, gesturing to a low table near some chairs with several old books open. There's almost no other space on the table as it happens. Have a seat. I'll see you afterwards, Kanaya says and politely excuses herself, leaving you alone with the rare books and several empty seats. Curiosity prickles at you, and so you lean over the books and try to get a good look at them. The paper looks gossamer thin and the text is faded with age. The edge of the pages are soft with wear. You're in no doubt of how old the book is, because the words themselves seem to be in some kind of Old English based on the spelling and just to the style it's written. Priceless indeed. Are you Mr. Vantis? A woman's voice asks. You look from the page to see an elderly fey woman with ghostly pale skin, entirely black eyes. She's draped in colorful fabric, but she looks like she's about 1,000 years old. I am, yes. Sorry, I probably shouldn't be reading this, should I? I didn't touch it, I swear, you tell her hastily. No, don't worry about that, dearie. I'm Miss Paint. I work here. Would you like some tea while you wait? The old woman croaks. Oh, sure, if you're making some anyway. I mean, I don't want to interrupt you or anything, you tell her awkwardly. Don't be silly, you're here for the job, yes? Miss Paint says, and the door to the little room she came from is open now, and you can hear her as she bustles about making tea. Yeah, Kanaya told me about it, and so I thought I should apply, you say with a nod and sit back in the chair a little so you're not looming over the priceless books. You've no experience, though, she says, and your shoulders fall. No, you admit. That's fine. Everyone starts somewhere. Experience can be gained, other things not so much. Here we are. This is turmeric tea. It's lovely, but don't spill it on your clothes or they'll be yellow forever. Miss Paint laughs and totters back towards you. Her hands are shaky and you can see bright yellow drops of the tea sliding down on the edge of the teacup, and to your horror it looks like she's going to put the cup down right on the book. Wait, the book, you gasp. Miss Paint says, and as she turns to look at you, it's clear she's going to spill that bright yellow tea all over the priceless book. You move before you can even think about it, skidding forward and scooping the book out of danger. The tea falls, but it's only going to hit you instead of the book. Only it doesn't. It halts just above your sleeve and then whooshes back into the cup. Baffled, you look at Miss Paint, who no longer seems shaky and unstable. Rather, she seems sharp as anything, and there's a glint in her black eyes. You're hired, she says, her voice smoother and less frail sounding. What? You stammer out in shock. I said you're hired. Come on, young man. Up you get, Miss Paint says. She floats her cup of tea in the air and pulls you to her feet with a deceptively strong hand. To your embarrassment, she bends over and dusts off your knees from where you'd skidded across the floor. Experience can be gained, but I can't teach someone to care about books. So if you're still interested in working here, I say we look at your schedule and see what we can arrange, Miss Paint says with a nod. But you stop and protest when you look to see that the priceless book in your hand is suddenly a phone book. Ah, I wouldn't risk a real book. Don't worry about that. Although, given how you people don't really make phone books much anymore, maybe it's a rare and worth preserving than I think it is. Or it's more rare and worth preserving than I think it is. Come now and drink your tea. It's really very good. She chuckles. The teacup floats over to you, and you carefully take it from the air. You set the phone book down on the table, which with what is now obviously several magazines and other phone books as well. It was all an illusion, but you passed the test. She hired you. Miss Paint, it turns out, is nowhere near as frail or out of it as she had been pretending to be. As you sit down with her and you show her your schedule, she negotiates shifts with you and tells you that since Kanaya recommended you, she would be responsible for training you. If you don't mind me asking, dear, what are you? Only I can see you're not human, and some sort of more advanced books get a little snappy around some species. She asks, and she makes note of on your staff sheet. I don't remember. Sorry. You apologize. Can I see your hand, please? Miss Paint asks, and holds out her pale and wrinkled hand in expectation. You hold out your own, and she peers at it, palm side up. She examines the lines on your hand, and tips your fingers, and even scratches at your skin lightly. Miss Paint is clearly old, and she's fey. She's far more otherworldly looking than Jade is, and you suspect she's far older and far more powerful. Perhaps someone as wise as her might know what you really are. Hope bubbles inside of you, and the treacherous thing that it is. Do you know what I am? You ask. Your hand must be trembling in hers for how excited you are for her answer. I can't say I've seen anything like you. Of course, you could be a mix between two non-human species that's made an unusual hybrid. Or perhaps you're just a different species that I've met before. It's hard to say. Sorry, I can't give you an answer, Carcat. Miss Paint says regretfully and lets you go. Disappointment settles in your belly like a rock, but it's a sadness you've swallowed many times before. You will find out. You're determined to figure this out. You will get there, and no one can stop you. Well, I guess we'll just cross that bridge when it comes. And make sure you don't go near the dangerous books without supervision. It'd be quite a way in the future before we let you do that anyway, so we really shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. Miss Paint says and gives you a wrinkly smile. A little while later you leave her office with a schedule and a staff ID badge hanging around your neck on a lanyard. Kanaya spots you the moment you even slightly insight in her office. She waves over you as if you weren't going to go see her on the way out. I got the job, you tell her, probably redundantly because you are wearing a staff badge now. You passed the test. What did you do with the books? Kanaya asks eagerly. This must be something Miss Paint pulls often if Kanaya already knows about it. She was going to put a turmeric tea-soaked cup down on what you told me were priceless books, so naturally, I flung myself over across the room to save them like a lunatic, you explain. On another note, you're really not sure about that tea. The best descriptor you had for it is just yellow, which isn't a ringing endorsement. You're a little concerned you might have stained your teeth, but you're not going to ask Kanaya that. I yanked the whole table out of the way, so you'll do just fine here. Kanaya nods sagely. My first day is the day after tomorrow, and apparently I'm your responsibility. Sorry about that, I guess. You tell her. Tomorrow is one of my days off, and that's why. And I don't mind training you at all. As long as you listen to me when I tell you something is dangerous, we'll be fine, Kanaya says. Yeah, you have no problem taking instruction from someone trying to stop you getting hurt. You have zero ego here about knowing more than she does. Kanaya absolutely knows more, and you're cool with that. I'm kinda glad that I get better lending privileges as staff now. I think I'm gonna be needing it. I've already got a study group going, you tell her and run your thumb over the laminated surface of your badge. The holographic foil on it shines appealingly with an air of achievement and a very minor authority. That was fast, Kanaya says. Oh man, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, you groan. Try me. Kanaya challenges you. So you do. You catch her up on the teacher and his very anti-demon lecture. You explain how it clearly pissed off your friends, and how you're all wary about how this course is going to go from now. And your plan is to just study the truth in yourselves and try to take the test without going to classes. Naturally, you leave out the theft you suspect that Solix and Jin are going to try to pull off. You also mention about how Solix reacted to you trying to be sympathetic to his feelings. You understand that it must suck to have someone not remember you, and you thought apologizing for that was a decent thing to do, even if it wasn't your fault, but clearly he didn't agree. Demons are tricky. Their way of thinking can be quite alien, but also very human at times. But that said, I've never met a demon that I didn't eventually like. Their society is very hierarchical. Who outranks who is very much a focus, so I suppose it's possible that you could have stumbled into some turn of phrase that's an insult to that kind of thing in their culture, Kanaya says after you're done talking. You didn't even mean to tell her all that, but she's a disarmingly good listener. I definitely got the feeling that I was missing something there. Either I said the wrong thing, or the guy is just a complete psycho. Everyone else seems to like him though, so it has to be me, right? What do I do? Apologize for offending him somehow? I think they all just end up the same way, you reason. If sympathy brought out that kind of rabid reaction, then another dose of it won't do any favors, will it? I would say that actions speak louder than words. If you don't think he means you actual harm, then I would suggest continuing to behave as normal. Then if he did interpret your words as an insult to his station, he would be more likely to write it off and see how you eventually act, Kanaya suggests. You lean back in your chair and fiddle with a torn-off receipt for a book return. That's pretty good advice. Usually if someone was like that with me, I'd tell him to fuck off or just avoid them, but he's my roommate's twin's best friend. She lived with the guy. I don't want her to hate me, so I'm stuck with him, you sigh. The truth isn't just that, although the social ties between you and him aren't to be ignored. No, you have a feeling that his outburst was weird for him somehow. Something amiss. You're lacking information, but in your gut you don't actually feel like he has any intention of really hurting you at all. Maybe that's foolish. Maybe that kind of feeling is the sort of thing that gets people killed around demons, but all the same you can't shake it. If the guy doesn't like you, then that's fine, but you don't think he's going to eviscerate you messily in the hallway or anything. Well, I should go. I guess I have to introduce myself to the other people who work here when I'm next in. Wait, I never saw the guy who called me on the phone, you gasp, as the idea suddenly occurs. Mr. Dewey, you mean? That's an old trick. Kanaya chuckles and you stare blankly at her. If Miss Paint had called you herself, then you would have recognized her voice and acted like you had to impress her. She cares about how people treat others who aren't above them. She's kicked out applicants before because they were condescending to an old lady with tea. They thought they just had to impress the man who called them in, Kanaya explains. But then who? You ask dumbly. Kanaya smiles and holds her fingers up. Green light and tiny letters gather in a circle around them in an orbit of her first two fingers. She presses them to her throat and speaks. It's a staff spell. The smooth tones of Mr. Dewey Decimal are very useful, she says in a smooth jazz voice from the phone. She takes her fingers away and flicks them until the light vanishes. Very fun at parties, too, Kanaya chuckles. Wait, so you called me? You gasp. Ha! No, that was Miss Paint. We just all know the spell. I'll teach it to you when you've passed your basic spellcasting course, Kanaya promises. You're looking forward to it. The immature part of your brain is tempted to use it to call people who annoyed you in the past and mess with them, but you should probably not immediately be planning on how to misuse magic that you've not been taught yet. When you get back to your dorm, there's a note from Rose on the whiteboard on your door saying that she's gone to dinner. Inside, there's a little paper note on the table that says she's realized she doesn't have your phone number and she's left you hers. Out of sheer habit, you don't send her a text, but rather put her number into a free Trollian app. You wonder if they're going to change the name because some activists have been going on about how it's unfair to name a program after magical creatures without that culture's permission. But trolls aren't a species that really interact with humans, so you don't see the problem anyways. Anyway, you get in touch with Rose. Okay, I'm gonna take a little thing of water. Oh, we're almost done. One more third to go. I think, roughly, based on the little sidebar. Hi Rose, it's Carcat. I'm back and I saw your note, obviously. Hello Carcat, I'm just in the dining hall now. I hope that Solix hasn't scared you off. We heard a bit of an incident going down outside, but by the time we came to investigate, Solix had shut himself up in his room and you were gone. Yeah, that's something alright. I think I offended him somehow, but I'm not gonna go into it. I got called in for a job interview at the library. I got the job, actually. Congratulations. Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it, actually. I have no idea why the government automatically gave people who lost all their memories money, but who knows when that'll suddenly stop. Better to have money saved up and an employment history, right? Certainly. It is strange how the legislation was already in effect the day that the event happened, but it was to my impression that although people talked about removing it and provided housing because socialism, that people were too scared to really do it. A magical force powerful enough to affect the world like that is not to be trifled with. Yeah, but since when have people been sensible? Quite. What are your plans for the evening? Are you joining us? Solix isn't here if that sways your decision. Oh god, I'm trying to avoid that tween bullshit. Avoiding each other and making other people inform you of the status of the other one. I was gonna study. I don't really feel like going out. I'm sure I can scrape something together from what I bought from my meal. Or from my place. From what I brought from my place. Cereal is certainly an acceptable dinner. Fight me. Or I could perhaps bring you back something from the dining hall if you're not dead set on suffering through the most studenty meal possible. Far be it from me to defile your aesthetic if that's what you're going for. Oh, no, I'm not wedded to suffering. If you're actually offering to bring me free food from the dining hall, I'd be more than happy to eat it. I'll do that then. I was going to come back soon anyway. Anything you don't eat. I'm not picky. Anything should be fine. Thanks, Rose. I appreciate it. It's no trouble. You leave your door open and sit at the desk, reading through the textbook that your Introduction to Spellcasting class told you to get. You're reading over how the first language that you're going to learn works. The advantage of C is that the characters it uses are primarily English, so reading it is easier, although it is clear that some words have a very specific meaning that you wouldn't assume in common speech. That said, there are symbols for things that English has no words for. That doesn't look like you'll actually need those yet. When Rose stops by almost an hour later with a takeout box of lasagna, you're happy for the break. You're even happy for the slightly stiff pasta and cheese that's definitely been under a hot lamp for a little while. Thanks, you tell her gratefully as you take the box from her and rub your tired eyes. No problem. Reading ahead, are we? Rose notes as she looks past you in your open textbook. I really want to be good at this, but the more I read, I'm learning things, but at the same time I'm understanding just how much I don't understand, if that makes any sense. I don't know. You mutter and nudge the book aside so you don't risk getting food on it. I understand what you mean. I must admit that I can do magic in this language, but my skill extends far more into reading already completed work or just doing instinctive verbal magic. Actually, composing written magical instructions isn't something I've done a lot of. I'm a touch concerned that mine and Dave's previous experience might have taught us bad habits, Rose says a little regretfully. Yeah, you suppose if her patron god was Cthulhu before the event that C would likely be her favorite language, or one of her favorite at least. At least you know you can do magic. I think until I write something out myself and really do it, I'll still worry that they've made some big mistake with me, you sigh. Then I suppose our little test our test really will be a trial by fire for you, Rose smiles. Har har. You laugh flatly without humor. Nightmares about burning yourself are probably going to crop up a lot until you pass those tests. That'll be fun, you're sure. On another note, I'll be out tomorrow evening. I have a clairvoyance class in the evening, and since it doesn't require written magic, Rose starts. We're allowed to take it before we pass the other classes. I know, because I'm taking it too, you tell her. I didn't see that coming, Rose says in surprise. Ironically. You snort. Ugh, don't talk to me about irony. Rose groans. You pause, a sheet of pasta halfway to your mouth. Sorry? You venture. Maybe Solix isn't weirdly sensitive. You could just be incredibly bad at interacting with people in a way that makes them not hate you. Your life experience thus far holds that up. That's very much a thing Dave is into. Irony and his lack of understanding of it. Deeply irksome, as I'm sure you'll come to agree with in time. Regardless, I look forward to attending the class with you. It'll be nice to have company, Rose nods. She pretty much leaves you to your dinner and studying after that. You think you like Rose as a roommate. You have your own separate spaces, and she isn't intrusive when you do interact with her. Even when you're reading in your room with your door open and she's doing the same, it's nice knowing that you're not by yourself for a change. The next day, your group skips xenobiology and meets up in June and Jade's room, which is by now lousy with plants, including several species that you've never seen before. To your surprise, when you walk through the door, Solix is floating cross-legged in the air by June's shoulder. Guess what I have, June declares as you and Rose walk through the door. A hairbrush, you blurt out before you think about it, because as usual, June's hair is crazy. What? No. June frowns, seeming confused. Of course, you nod. To your surprise, Solix laughs loudly and has to cover his mouth with his hand to stop himself from going on. June seems to clock that you just insulted her, and she folds her arms across her chest, the paper quite visibly in her hands rustling as she does so. Gee, Carcat, you're kind of an asshole, you know, June tells you sharply. Solix is still laughing and is undeterred when June scowls at him. I'm sorry, it sort of came out of my mouth without it going through my brain, you admit. Don't apologize, that's stupid, ruining a burn like that. Solix tuts in disapproval. God, he's weird. What I have here, Carcat, June says and smacks you in the face with a stack of papers, are the questions and the answers to the test to get out of that stupid class. Exactly how did you get that? Jade asks. By being awesome, Solix says and shares a fist bump with June. That absolutely explains everything. No further questions here, Dave says flatly. I knew you'd understand, Solix says brightly. Leaving aside the ethics of theft from species you've done it now, or from species, you've done it now, so we should probably commit to this. Perhaps it would behoove us to go over the original material and the test answers and then break up our research schedule for actual truth. We could perhaps take turns researching the teaching and teaching the information to each other to better share the workload, Rose suggests. That makes sense. We've got 6 topics, so that breaks up nicely. Solix, do you want to do demons? June asks, looking at him. Oh, so just because I'm a demon, that means that I must want to be the one teaching about demons? Is that what you're saying to me? Solix gasps in offense. No, I'm saying you're a lazy person, and this topic is something you don't have to research, June snorts in amusement. I prefer efficient, but sure, I'll do it. Solix nods. I'll do Fae then. The research could be pretty interesting. I haven't really had contact with much other Fae so much, Jade says. Fae are cool. I've got respect for any species that does deals like we do. Plus, they make nice stuff. Solix tells her, and Jade beams with very obvious delight. Why can he be nice to her, and not to you? What other topics do you have, or do you got? Oh, cool. I'll take werewolves, Dave says as he pulls at June's papers until he can see them. Then I'll go with merfolk, which leaves selkies and vampires, June says. My coworker is a vampire, you comment. Well, perhaps you should take that topic then. You can see if your coworker might be willing to check your sources for you. I'm happy to take selkies, Rose suggests. Okay, yeah, that sounds good. You agree. With your work divided, the 6 of you look over the notes for your subjects. A lot of information about vampires seems like stuff you've absorbed from general culture. Not being able to enter places without permission, not being able to be exposed to sunlight, warded off by holy symbols, etc. Except you imagine that if holy symbol thing ever worked, it doesn't now, just as Solix pointed out for demons. You also doubt that not being exposed to sunlight thing, because unless the library windows filter out whatever is dangerous in sunlight, you know you've seen Kanaya in the daylight. You've exclusively seen her in the daylight, actually. In the afternoon, you have your C magical language lecture and lab, and since you're all skipping Xenobiology 101, your group instead hits up the dining hall and loads up on lunch and coffee. Making friends, remember? So, June, how do you know these 3? You ask as you eye an ambiguous fruit jello cup before figuring fuck it and adding it to your tray. Oh, we go way back. I didn't live all that far from them, you see. Me and my dad lived more in town and they lived in the woods, but we'd hang out a bunch, and we went to the same school. It's actually nice to go to school with Solix, though, June explains. You cast an eye at the very obviously demonic figure ahead of your group. He's not paying attention to you at all, but rather listening to some rambling stream of words from Dave. They didn't let him go to school, huh? You guess. Higher education is one thing, but humans can be funny about this sort of thing. Getting half-humans into school only happened in the last 100 years, but Solix, whose species, not without reason, has a reputation for evil? Yeah, no. Somebody think of the children would have kept him well out of there. In fairness, I don't think he super wanted to go either, June shrugs. Actually, surely he'd have been too old, right? Demons don't really age, do they? Would have been odd for him to go to a middle school looking like that, although the mental image is great. You snort as you picture Solix sat next to tween Dave, looking just as he does now. Actually, wait, hold on, June hums and moves along the line as it goes forward. She's flicking through her phone and finally turns the screen to show you a picture of a young teenage Dave, Rose, June, and indeed Solix. Only Solix looks the same age as them. He's clearly younger in the picture. Holy shit, is he actually our age? You whisper in shock. He's younger than me, actually. Don't tell him I told you. June winks at you. She slides up the register and checks out as you marvel over that information. That's gotta be young for a demon if he's, what, 18? Or do demons not work that way? Perhaps he changed his age to match with the people he was around. A subtle form of shapeshifting, maybe. You're pretty sure he won't tell you if you ask, but you're super curious. I guess that explains why he doesn't seem to be in the class or into the class thing if he's never done school before, you say and slide your tray over to check out with your student card. Yeah, it's kind of a change for him, I guess, but he's a smart guy. He'll get into it the moment he runs into something that's actually a challenge for him, June says with a shrug. You take your card back from the lady at the checkout. Thanks to some miracle, everything is somehow covered in that tuition that you're not paying for. What about you, Carcat? What was your life like before you came here? June asks. You frown at your tray as you step away from the line. I lived in one of those buildings for people who don't remember their past and got keys to their room there. I lived on my own, and I never had any friends. I don't know what I am, but you only need a few kids at school to work out that you're something, and shit goes shittier way fast. I'm kind of amazed that I have a job now and people willing to talk to me, you tell her. Oh, June says in a surprised voice. Sorry, bringing down the mood. Where'd the others go? You try to steer the conversation into a distraction and look for the others. Ah, over there. You can see them at a table already. But I'm sure it wasn't all that bad, though. Sure, kids can be mean, but I bet it was fun in your building, right? Everyone in the same boat. It must have been a real community, yeah? June says hopefully as you start walking towards the others. No, living in Magic Amnesia Ghetto building wasn't fun. My neighbors hated me and I couldn't move. You tell her a little more sharply than you meant to. Carcat, I was thinking about tonight, Rose says as you draw closer to the table. Hopefully that'll cut off your unfortunate conversation with June. Yeah, you say and sit down and start getting your food off your tray, so you're not taking up an unreasonable amount of space on the table. That we should probably come down here to eat it at 8 and then go afterwards, Rose suggests. Where are you going? You're way too gay to be taking him on a... Dave starts. Ow! Solix yelps and lifts his leg out from under the table so he has his knees to his chest. Kick the wrong ankle. Like I said, you're way too gay to take Carcat out on a date, so what you doing? Dave finishes asking. Rose picks up her knife and throws it at Dave, only it stops midair just before his face. The utensil promptly floats back over to Rose and melts right over her desserts. Oops. Thank you, Solix. I wasn't trying to kick you. I do apologize for that, at least. She asks warily. You were trying to kick Dave and throw a knife at him, Solix growls. Yeah, Rose, Dave grins. If I tell you where we're going, will the idiocy stop, you ask, knowing the real answer. I doubt it, Rose mutters and nudges at her still glowing dessert remnants with her fork. We have class on seeing the future, dream interpretation, tarot, all that sort of thing. They hold it at night. Tonight, in fact. Happy now? Done divulging other people's personal information, you ask him? That's all I wanted to know. See, Rose? Didn't have to be a production. Dave sneers at her sister. At his sister. I know. Oh my god, I'm misgendering Dave. Sneers at his sister. I'm going to build a fancy mausoleum and lock you inside it when you're still alive, Rose tells him without looking up from her inedible dessert. Why do you want to see the future? Solix asks, ignoring the death threats going on beside him. He's watching you curiously, his eyes bright, and inhuman ears pricked to attention. Why do you care? You retort immediately. Why do you not want me to know? Solix fires back immediately. Fine, except that you may have had a cultural mishap before, and move past it for the sake of social niceness, right? That was your resolution. First of all, seeing the future would be cool as heck, you tell him, holding up one finger. Heck. Solix repeats incredulously. You ignore that. Second, it's not so much the future that I'm interested in, but more the whole process of gaining knowledge from forces outside myself. If I can do that for the future, then maybe I can do that for the past, you reason. You're trying to remember things, Solix says slowly. Obviously, you tell him. Why wouldn't you? Not to, discourage you or anything, but people have tried that sort of thing a lot over the last 5 years, June says regretfully, like a parent breaking to their kid that the Easter Bunny isn't real. Well, I haven't tried it. Plus, what do I have to lose? But June starts. If I can do something, then I have to. It doesn't matter how minuscule the odds are, you say emphatically. There's a puff of red and blue smoke, and suddenly there's no Solix at all. At least everyone else looks as confused as you feel. What did I say this time, you ask? That's pretty weird, Jade agrees. Hey, how come you've got entirely desserts? I only just noticed, June laughs, pointing at Jade's plate. True enough, she has cinnamon rolls, buns, jello, and other assorted things. I'm just trying things we couldn't get on the island, is all. I'm not really sure I like this much, though. Jade admits and pokes the ambiguously fruity jello with a spoon. There's another flash of light and appley smoke in Solix's back, this time with hot sauce in hand. Maybe you didn't say something wrong, and he's just suddenly remembered that he wanted something from his fridge back in his dorm. That explanation is convenient, but you don't entirely feel it's right. He's also putting the hot sauce on literally everything, but you're not going to question it. Other people's weirdness is their problem, not yours. Your first C class after lunch goes over a lot of the technical stuff that you have already been reading, but it's good to hear it explained with a few things that you hadn't quite clicked for you when you were studying alone become clear. In the lab itself, you're not writing your own spells, but rather assessing provided examples so you can accurately translate them. Given that C is almost entirely written in English, you'd think it'd be easy, but it functions so differently from natural speech that it takes some time to get your head around it. By the end of class, you've managed to correctly translate everything, and you think you're getting a hang on the unusually rigid grammar of the language. There's certainly clarity to it that's appealing, but there's no poetry to the language. I don't think it's for me. June sighs as you all walk back to your dorms. Ath is way better, Solix agrees. I'd be interested to learn that sometime. Jade tells him. The others keep going past you, and you and Rose let yourself into your room. You wave your goodbyes, but all the same relish in the silence when the door shuts. You enjoy the company of people, but having spent your life so isolated, it's a lot to get used to. If it wasn't for how badly June clearly wants me to, I'd ask how they managed to get a hold of that teacher's notes and test overnight. Part of me thinks I'd be happier not knowing, though, Rose says out of nowhere. What, are you imagining some Mission Impossible style nonsense? You ask her, and Rose gives you a sly, conspiratorial look. Maybe that's more likely than you thought. She offers no explanation, instead wanders off to her room, leaving you alone until later when you're going to get food and then go to class again. With the mention of movies, your eyes slide over to Rose's nice TV. You have no intention of watching Mission Impossible, but you might relax the movie that's more your taste than you have to leave, or before you have to leave later. After the uncertain fiddling that comes with using any TV setup that you're unfamiliar with, you finally get Netflix working and settle down to watch 50 First Dates. It's a good time, as it always is. You can always rely on romance movies with a happy ending to make you feel better. Unfortunately, by the time you and Rose walk into your class, all the relaxed mindset that you'd watched so much Adam Sandler to cultivate burns away in favor of your anxiety. What if you can't do any of the things that you're taught here? What if you learn nothing at all? Your classroom is atop a tower, up far too many fucking stairs, and after that crap ton more stairs. If nothing else, attending this class will be great for your cardio. The classroom itself is filled with crystals, stacked up teacups, jars of small bones, and a whole bunch of things that look like a hoarder went through a props department. None of the furniture in the room matches up at all, but you sit down at a small round table with Rose and await the start of class. Rose says dubiously, her eyes roaming over everything on the walls. You eye a large star chart for a moment or two. It all looks very complex. What are you thinking? You ask her as quietly as you can. I got visions from Cthulhu. I was gifted with sight. All these methods of seeing just struck me as so trite and tacky. It's both depressing and humbling that I have to be here. I can't say I'm a fan of the feeling, Rose says under her breath, clearly hoping to only be heard by you. You doubt anyone else in the class will appreciate her words. It does seem a little... You try and find the word as your gaze lands on a carved crystal skull. Kitsy? Rose suggests, and you nod in agreement. That's about right. When your teacher walks in, the feeling only solidifies. She has long black hair with gold chains and crystals woven through it. Her clothes are floaty, multicolored fabric. Her entire demeanor gives you the impression that somewhere in her house is driftwood with live, laugh, love on it, and genuinely thinks that kale chips are good. Hello, class, she says in a breathy sigh. You and Rose share a skeptical look. I am so delighted to have you all here with me this semester. I hope I can guide you to your personal method of seeing the beyond, she says and turns to her chalkboard behind her. To begin, I would like to describe to you the main families of second sight. Firstly is when a witch receives information from a deity or other higher powers. Prophets and a lot of seers generally fall under this bracket. Of course, this no longer works, she says and writes gifted knowledge, higher power on the board. Rose's fingernails dig into the star pattern tablecloth on the table between you. The second is knowledge given to us from the afterlife, or other non-corporeal beings, so this can be the voice of the deceased or elemental spirits. The methods of this vary, but there are plenty of practical applications for this. Understanding that a river spirit will lash out can prevent construction from going up in inappropriate places, therefore saving people's homes from flooding in the future. There are also mediums who work with private investigators, although at the moment such evidence is unfortunately not admissible in court. It can direct an investigation to find other proof. The teacher goes on, this time writing gifted knowledge, spirits. This perks you up at least. Despite her appearance and tone of her voice, the teacher seems pretty switched on the actual uses of the things she teaches. All of which implies that her methods do actually work. I see you, Zeno. The third category of knowledge we gain from ourselves. Sometimes this can be by way of communicating or communing with ourselves through time, or by way of divining things we subconsciously know. Though this last branch is difficult, most people have experienced it in a way. We've all had experience of flipping a coin to decide what to do, and when it lands, finding that we knew all along because we feel relief, or instead wish for the other result. Our intuitive minds pick up more than we know, and this is the way of recovering that knowledge, she goes on. That right there is the one you're really interested in. Whatever happened to you and everyone else who lost their memory can't be absolute. Surely every spell has a weakness, some way around it. All you want to know is who and what you are. You're entitled to that knowledge, god damn it. The last category is very much like the third. This is drawing information from other people. In some cases, their physical selves, in the case of palm reading, and sometimes less so in the case of viewing someone's aura. That last kind is very hard to do without gaining skills in reading yourself, she finishes. The final two categories on the board simply go up as knowledge from self and knowledge from others. The teacher sets her chalk down and turns to face the assembled class with a smile. Naturally, there's overlap between these kinds of things. Some methods work well for multiple families of knowledge, and sometimes the two dovetail nicely. You could ask help from a spirit to interpret the fortune of another person, giving you context to the information you have, she explains. How are we going to be evaluated on this course? Is it how good we are at getting information? Another student asks, and you silently thank them for asking what you didn't have the guts to. Your teacher shakes her head to the slight jingling of her jewelry. No, that would be unfair. Each week I will explain about a new method of divining and issue you with tools to do so. Then that week I'll set to the task of trying that method, and you'll write up your experiences as well as an essay question I'll set each week. The thing with this field is that even the most gifted among us can't use every method. Different things work for different people, so it's in everyone's interest for this to be a chance to trial methods. I do offer courses in these in depth if you pass this course, and I have other colleagues who have their own specialty if you find something that clicks for you, she says. That seems reasonable. You get a thing, you try it, report back, and repeat. It's probably not going to get you over the learning hurdle of being bad at something, but it's probably going to rule out a lot of the shit that won't work at all. Besides, you have a roommate who will want to study this with you. First of all, we'll start with the basics. The Ouija board. Your teacher beams and pulls a box out. Maybe this class has already heightened your skills of extra sensory perception, because you definitely just felt the wave of despair that came from Rose. Yay! End of chapter 2! Hooray! Bada bing, bada boom. I've already left. Oh, I'm leaving kudos to my other account. Hooray! We did that in an hour and a half, which is about the time it took for the other one. So, bada bing, bada boom. Chapter 2, baby! Oh my goodness. What a read. I kind of want to keep going, but I'm like, if I commit to a chapter, I'm not going to want to stop halfway through. So, is Rose okay? Rose is surviving. She's like imagine being this seer, and you know, you get like these divine visions from your god, and now you have to resort to a Ouija board. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, well, all right. So yeah. So, but yeah, I missed probably some of the chat stuff that you guys were talking about earlier because I was trying not to get too distracted. Rose and Carcat have such a dynamic. I love them dearly. So true. I literally love them. I love Rose and Carcat in this fic. So, you know, I think we made you laugh. I'm sorry. Yeah, a little bit. I do like glimpse in between paragraphs that there's new stuff in the chat. So, but I try not to get too distracted because it's just easier to read it fully through. But yeah. So, and then we get interesting stuff with Solux. There's like this whole kind of thing with Solux and Carcat going on. And now, remember guys, I know people in here who have read it already. So, no spoilers, because we have people in here who haven't. But I'm excited for stuff. And seeing the dynamic. Also, to solve the issue of using terminology such as God and Hell and the fear of offending Solux, just replace everything with fuck. Well, I don't think Hell offended him, but it was whenever God was used, that was definitely something that triggered him a little. Oh my fuck. Yeah. But yeah. All right. I think I'm gonna end stream. I was gonna do a little bit of drawing, but I think I'll just end stream there. We will be live tomorrow with more. Same time, 9 p.m. EST is whenever I'll go live, and we do a little story time. For example, fucking fuck instead of Jesus Christ. Yeah, you just gotta back to back. Awesome. All right, so we will do chapter 3 tomorrow, and we will keep going. I'm actually kind of loving this, so it'd be really dope if we read the whole fic. And I'd be down too. It's so weird watching your streams. Usually they're not like this. Usually it's, you know, drawing or whatever. Something to look forward to. Yay! I'm glad you guys are enjoying it. It's very fun. So yeah, so I will be live tomorrow. And we'll keep going. Like I've seen your animations and it's just sort of strange to me that there's a person behind all the amazing. Aw, thank you. I appreciate it. So, yeah. Very, very hype. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so we'll keep going, tomorrow. So, same time, 9 p.m. EST. It's not a podfic, but hearing someone reading it will be fantastic. I would love to do a podfic, but trying to get like voice actors and stuff together. So for me, it's like I'm just gonna casually read it, and because I know when I was, it's so funny. There was a point where I was trying to reread MC Escher, and I was like I had to get some art stuff done. Like I was working on my thesis film, and I really wanted to read MC Escher while I was working on my thesis film. And so because I couldn't find a solution, I like tried to use like a text to speech like bot thing for like, you know, for like deaf or like hard of hearing people, and it just didn't work. It just didn't work at all. But I pumped through the whole first chapter through the text to speech thing just because I was desperate. I was like, I just need to I just need to like listen to it while I'm while I'm drawing or working. Because there's no, like, you can't find podfics or anything. Like the only podfic that there kind of is the there's like the first 10 chapters of Dave's Broken Diamond Club that oh, what's their name? That Nerdalistic did. And it kind of hasn't, you know, they didn't get to finish the fic. Even though I think that their podfic is pretty good. So yeah. But I was like, man, I just want people to read. I just want people to read it out loud to me. I mean, if these are just put up somewhere, I'm sure basically everyone in the Unda server will enjoy it. I think I'll try to save the VODs, if anything, and just keep them as a backlog, if people are really interested in reading it, because Twitch will remove the VODs after a certain amount of days. So if I can download the VODs to archive it, if people do want to listen to me reading, then I can save the archive. If anything, I'll listen to my own fucking voice so I can re-listen to Alternate Universe, you know what I mean? So, but I'll do that. And listen, here's the thing. I still really want to do the book club idea when MC Escher 2 comes out, so that'll be a whole other experience. I was really thinking of going live and reading the Rivers from My Planet chapter when it came out yesterday, but I was like, that would be like that wouldn't encompass a lot of people because like in the middle of it. Have you seen Etho's new modded Minecraft episode? He mispronounced Among Us. No, I haven't. I haven't watched Minecraft YouTube in like months. I've kind of shuffled away from it a lot. I mean, I'm still subscribed to people, but I haven't seen a Hermitcraft video in probably like 4 months. So, you know, but yeah. Start thinking about the fully voice acted Unda podfic idea again. Yeah. Oh, I miss it. Oh, I want it so bad. I want it so bad. Alright, anyways, okay. That's a wrap. I'm gonna go eat and get work done. Because I have a lot of schoolwork stuff to get done. Have you seen what's been going on with the Minecraft YouTuber Tumblr Sexy Man? I have. I've seen all the creators noticing. And it's incredibly funny. I think that, I think it's all in good fun. And I appreciate the, like, streamer, or the creators who aren't, like, being, you know, like, aren't, like, taking it seriously, because it's not supposed to be something taken seriously. I think, you put Sexy Man in a title and make it a contest, and some people are like, wait, what? And it's like, okay, Tumblr is just weird, like, you have to understand, there's some context here, right? So yeah, alright, okay, that's all for me. I'm gonna go. Thank you guys all for joining me. I hope you have a lovely, lovely, lovely rest of y'all's night. I'm gonna make this VOD available, and, because right now it's not published, but I will publish it so it is available for playback. Alright, talk to you guys all tomorrow. Have a lovely night. Good night, bye-bye. Wow.